Listen up. We're going to take this for as long as I'm capable of taking it, all right? Trump's been doing some weird shit lately, okay? There's some other stuff that I haven't really covered because I don't even know what to say about it. Like the fact that that one Trump Facebook group ran an advertisement 88 times that had 14 words in his first sentence. That was a little bit weird. And that ad happened to contain the downwards pointing red triangle, which was a symbol associated with Nazi Germany for political prisoners. And they were talking about Antifa being a terrorist group. That's a little bit weird, I'm going to admit. It's a little strange. And then there's the fact that recently the official Trump merchandising administration came out with a T-shirt. I'll just show the Trump T-shirt. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one right there. That's now that's what I call a nice meme. See, it's good. It's a T-shirt. It's official. It's good. There you go. So that's cool. There was that part where Trump, tweeted out a video of a man yelling "white power," and he didn't unretweet it for hours afterwards. And the White House administration said the reason why it wasn't removed sooner is because they weren't able to get a hold of Trump because he was golfing. But it's the president of the United States who is surrounded by Secret Service members at all times, which means that it's always possible to get a hold of Trump. So I have a feeling that it was just Trump, like, sweating it out, like, here, this will really rile him up. Man, there was the, there's a lot of wacky stuff going on. Did I miss one? I probably missed quite a few of the most recent stuff. I have to say, here's my position on Trump, okay? Trump is a fascist. I've always held the position that Trump is a fascist. Obviously, the way he tries to play... I mean, we're about to look at a speech of his. Of course he's a fucking fascist. But with regards to Nazism, being a Nazi would require Trump to believe in something higher than himself, and he doesn't. So I don't think he can be a Nazi. It's entirely possible to be fascist in sort of a self-serving oligarchical way, but to be a Nazi, you have to believe in this white revival and, like, the Jewish question, and I don't think he cares enough about anything outside of himself to believe in any of those things. So I don't think he can be those things. What I do think, however, is Trump recognizes, as his approval rating plummets and his likelihood of re-election succeeding also plummets, that the only chance he's going to get of holding on to his position of power is to invoke some sort of far-right insurrection where he declares the election results illegitimate and tries to hold on to power anyway. And the best chance of him doing that is to kowtow to the far right. That's what I think is happening. I think that Trump is probably surrounded by people with far-right or even full-on neo-Nazi sympathies, and for that reason, at this point, the best chance he has at holding on to power is to try to capitulate to the people most willing to die for his not re-election, for his perpetuation of power. That would be my best. That would be my best guess. It's actually a really smart. It's actually a really smart, like, strategy, because at this point, there's virtually nothing Trump can do to actually shore up his chances of winning re-election. He's pretty fucked in that respect. So only by delegitimizing the electoral process and by capitulating to people who would already believe him, no matter what shit claims he makes, that's probably, like, his best way forward. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if he's capable of actually enacting a coup. But in the meantime, hey, buddy, President Trump's full speech at Mount Rushmore. I feel like so often when we talk about President Trump, Orange Man bad, and when we talk about Joe Biden, Biden boy, well, he's not good, but I guess he's preferable. We're doing it in the abstract, We're not really talking with a full knowledge of what these people represent. I feel like lefties spend a lot of time watching Biden. We watch a lot of Biden, so we can make fun of him and say that he's mentally degenerative and senile and what have you. But when was the last time you listened to Trump speak? Thought it might be nice. Let's take a look, huh? We'll see how much of this we can sit through.
Well, thank you very much, and Governor Noem and Secretary Bernhardt, we very much appreciate it. Members of Congress, distinguished guests, and a very special hello to South Dakota.
Because it's Mount Rushmore.
As we begin this 4th of July weekend, the First Lady and I would wish each and every one of you a very, very happy
Oh, hey, live posting.
Independence Day. Thank you. Let us show our appreciation to the South Dakota Army and Air National Guard and the U.S.
Air
Air
National
Force
Guard.
for inspiring us with that magnificent display of America.
Oh my goodness, thank you. All right, skip it up.
Law enforcement, first responders, and the doctors, nurses, and scientists working tirelessly to kill the virus. They are working hard.
Skip it up.
Majestic mountain and monument to the greatest Americans who have ever lived.
He legitimately can't talk. Holy shit! Every time I skip, the first word he says, it's like he's drunk.
Today we pay tribute to the exceptional lives and extraordinary legacies of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Teddy Roosevelt.
Work to it.
Will stand forever as an eternal tribute to our forefathers and to our freedom.
Get into it.
Presented the culmination of thousands of years of Western civilization and the triumph.
Here we go. Here we go. You knew there's a reason why I'm skipping around. After we dispense with the formalities to begin with.
And that which God has given us, we will allow no one ever to take away, ever. (1776) represented the culmination of thousands of years of Western civilization and the triumph of not only spirit, but of wisdom, philosophy, and reason. And yet, as we meet here tonight, there is a growing danger that threatens every blessing our ancestors fought so hard for, struggled, they bled to secure. Our nation is witnessing a merciless campaign to wipe out our history.
If I translated this to German, would the parallels be any clearer to you?
Shame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children. Angry mobs are trying to tear down statues of our founders, deface our most sacred memorials, and unleash a wave of violent crime in our cities. Many of these people have no idea why they're doing this, but some know exactly what they are doing. They think the American people are weak and soft and submissive. But no, the American people are strong and proud, and they will not allow our country and all of its values, history, and culture to be taken from them.
So, if I could give sort of like a seminal lecture on fascism right here, oh man, there's so much to get into. It's actually incredible. So, you begin by talking about the forefathers. You begin by talking about the glorious, almost mythological beginning of this civilization, or of this country. Western civilization was all building up to this moment, the formation of this country, but there are ne'er-do-wells who wish to take it all away. Some of them are just unwitting pawns of the enemy, but some of them know exactly what they are doing. We frame a difference between the American people and the protesters. Notice how he distinguished between Americans and protesters. He suggests the protesters do what they do. He doesn't suggest a reason. He never, and he will never, by the way, say that they are doing it because they are fighting racism. He can only say they are doing it because they hate this country. It is absolutely necessary that he never actually indicate what the aims of the people he is criticizing are. So instead, he will vaguely gesticulate. He will say they hate America, they think Americans are weak, they think Americans are submissive, but we are not. We are stronger than them. It's the words of militancy. It's the language of war. One where you don't even pretend to recognize the aims of your enemy because there is no reason to capitulate to them. There is only the need to see them ground into dust. This is I mean, this is just fascism. Was this actually written by Stephen Miller? Trump 4th of July speech writer. Is that actually true? Team of writers in the West Wing who are led by Stephen Miller. Yeah. Now that's what I call. Yep. Give me your fucking click thing. You're gonna do it again, aren't you? Yep. Well, yeah. Stephen Miller being an avowed white nationalist, by the way. Is Stephen Miller human? All I know is that Richard Spencer is a big fan of him. So funny that. They're too stupid to even synchronize their chants. Jesus Christ. USA. USA.
One of their political weapons is cancel culture, driving people from their jobs,
He's seen the Contra video.
shaming dissenters, and demanding total submission from anyone who disagrees. This is the very definition of totalitarianism. And it is
Again, I just want to remind you guys, I'm not saying that Biden's not mentally degenerative. I'm just saying they both are, okay? That's not a specific complaint you get to levy against one of them.
completely alien to our culture and to our values, and it has absolutely no place in the United States of America.
Notice how he keeps talking about culture. Culture, civilization, these lofty ideas. You've probably heard language like this before when I debate neo-Nazis. That's not me being facetious or hyperbolic, it's true. An unwillingness to stick to the specifics, a desire to talk about these gigantic generalities, to be evocative with language. This is a very, very, very common attribute amongst fascists. Because if Trump were to speak specifically here, he would look ridiculous. Listen to what he's talking about. They hate American culture. They want to destroy American culture. Dude, they're fucking protesters. America was founded on protests. Like, the idea, protesting an unjust and authoritarian government is literally that's the origin story for this fucking country. But he can't acknowledge that. He can't talk about that. He can't even differentiate between a just and unjust protest, because even to get lost in the nuances to detract from the speaking, the rhetoric of fascism. Instead, we speak only in generalities. There's only the patriot and the anti-American. There's the person who is within and without our culture. That's it. That's all there ever can be.
America. This attack on our liberty, our magnificent liberty, must be stopped, and it will be stopped very quickly. We will expose this dangerous movement, protect our nation's children, end this radical assault, and preserve our beloved American way of life.
He talks about children a lot, too, even though children have literally nothing to do with the BLM protests. Like, it's completely unrelated. But he has to talk about children. For the same reason, the white nationalists do. Yeah, that was almost the 14 words.
In our schools, our newsrooms, even our corporate boardrooms, there is a new far-left fascism that demands absolute allegiance. If you do not speak its language, perform its rituals, recite its mantras, and follow its commandments, then you will be censored, banished, blacklisted, persecuted, and punished. It's not going to happen to us.
Notice the non-specificity. Who has been canceled exactly? In all of this BLM marching we've seen over the past month, the only people for whom the firings and arrests have been called for are the people responsible for murdering them black folk. George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. That's pretty much all I've seen. It's just been police who failed to adequately perform their job. Who exactly is being targeted by this cancel culture he's speaking of? He will never describe it specifically. Also, I thought I would share this for you guys. Maybe this is just me being just a fan of the comic. But for those of you who have ever read Transmetropolitan, do you know what that is? Trump here reminds me very much of a character called Bob Heller. Transmetropolitan is a cyberpunk story written by Warren Ellis, where a journalist tries to navigate the complex political and social nuance of a megacity that is kind of like New York, but also isn't really. And one of the characters in this story is Mr. Bob Heller, a, well, neo-Nazi, or at the very least, somebody who certainly resembles one. And he has a speech in Transmetropolitan that I thought is rather apropos. Now, this is Warren Ellis writing what he considers to be not only fascist language, but language so overt that it should offend the sensibilities of everyone who reads it. This isn't meant to be like a sympathetic viewpoint. This is meant to be like, holy shit, this is how far politics has gone. I'm going to read it for you. Actually, we can look at the pages together, okay? And I want you to read this satire, this artistic license, and tell me how, I don't know, how representative it feels of the modern political discourse. Here we go. Here we go. We got the sports ladies. They come up, and they come up and they kiss him. We got the little bit of political theater. They take the jacket off. It's a comic book. Okay, let's work with it. The Smiler is the name of an opposing politician. There's been a lot of loose talk lately about me cozying up to the Smiler. Yeah, I see you laughing. You heard it too, huh? I got something to say about the Smiler. He's weak. He believes in weak things. Probably a pacifist, yeah? Yeah, I knew that would make you laugh. You know it. You're Americans. You know nature can't stand the joining of the strong and the weak. Nature doesn't desire it, and Americans don't desire anything unnatural. Not real Americans. And America is for Americans. You know something? No more than nature desires the mating of weaker and stronger individuals. Even less does she desire the blending of a higher with a lower race. Since if she did, her whole work of breeding, of higher breeding, over perhaps hundreds of thousands of years, would be ruined with one blow, one blow. History offers countless proofs of this. It shows with terrifying clarity that in every mingling of American blood with that of lower peoples, the result was the end of cultured peoples. When man attempts to rebel against the iron logic of nature, he comes into struggle with the principles to which he himself owes his existence as a man, and this attack must lead to his own doom. Here, of course, we encounter the objection of the modern pacifist. They say, I want the wombs of American women to be shat in by the weak. And then the comic continues. Now, this is funny to me for a lot of reasons, because I read this comic when I was really young, and I thought at the time, like, this is a very hyperbolic representation of people's political opinions. And now I debate people who more or less talk like this, except they're less convincing. Like, this is pretty much my job now. This is like, yeah, to be fair, this person is significantly more cogent and rhetorically proficient than most of the people that I debate who believe these things, but this is essentially what I deal with time and time again. But I want you to focus. Now, obviously, there are some parts of this that are not applicable to Trump. Obviously, Trump does not openly talk about the degeneracy of race mixing, and to my knowledge, he has never claimed that liberals want the wombs of American women to be shat in by the weak. But there are a couple of very interesting commonalities there that I thought you might find, I don't know, if nothing else, funny. It's a good comic. You should read it. I'm not spoiling anything. So, for example, notice how Bob Heller, again, that's the fascist type, talked about the mingling of the lower and the higher races, but the racial group he referred to as being superior was Americans. He didn't say black and white. And in fact, if you looked in the crowd, there were, there were all sorts of different looking folk. It wasn't black and white people, it was Americans and non-Americans. He described Americans as something essential to a given set of principles, and what's more, he talked about pacifism as something which is inherently conciliatory to the enemy. You know, the pacifists say they want the wombs of American women to be shattered by the weak. And that reminds me a little bit of the way Trump is talking right here. Trump is talking about how, in this sense, to be a protester against the United States of America, to oppose the government of the United States of America in the way that protesters do, is to make one not only un-American, but to make one antithetical to the culture upon which this country was built. In essence, it is, and I think that we're comfortable, I would be very comfortable saying Trump is saying this, to be a protester is to be subhuman. The logic follows naturally. If you believe that Americanism, that American culture, is the greatest, most supreme, most enlightened culture on earth, and that to protest, to be a protester, is to be antagonistic towards that culture, what you are essentially saying, in a very essentialist way, is that the people who are protesting this country are subhuman. They are weak. That they think you are weak, and they will try to take advantage of your weakness. But besides all of that, their inferior cultural predilections will ultimately be their downfall. You know how fascists will constantly over and simultaneously underestimate the strength of their opponents? The protesters are at once an existential threat to all of America, to our children, to our culture, to our civilization, but they are also weak, meandering, whimpering, anti-American, cowardly little welfare rats. Trump didn't say rats. I'm comfortable intuiting some of his positions from the language he uses. Let's let him take it away. That's enough with the comparisons. Let's listen to him.
Make no mistake, this left-wing cultural revolution is designed to overthrow the American Revolution.
I don't know what that means.
In so doing, they would destroy the very civilization that rescued billions from poverty, disease, violence, and hunger, and that lifted humanity to new heights of achievement, discovery, and progress.
Now, if I was debating Trump here, I would point out that a willingness to protest injustice is the mechanism by which we improve people's lives, but again, there's no room for that here.
It is possible. They are determined to tear down every statue, symbol, and memory of our national heritage.
He likes that.
True.
You see that? He paused because he was waiting for a response, and he smiled because that one person lacked the social graces to keep him from screaming. But he liked that. That's why he does everything he does. Now, I'm an attention whore too. I love attention, but I won't lie about that, okay? I'm perfectly forthcoming about that. Also, and this is essential, I am not the President of the United States of America, so that is also another distinguishing characteristic between myself and the Don. But it's yet.
That's very true, actually.
I didn't hear what she.
That is why I am deploying federal law enforcement.
Here we go.
To protect our monuments, arrest the rioters, and prosecute offenders to the fullest extent of the law.
That's what they stand up for. I want to remind everyone how Trump won the presidency to begin with. You know what people used to stand up for and cheer? Bringing jobs back. They would stand up and cheer for re-empowering America, for fighting China. And they would stand up and cheer for the wall. And they would stand up and cheer for lock her up too. That was a really big one. But you notice how as time has gone on, Trump's efforts to impress his base have had less and less to do with improving the country and more to do with destroying the left. Have you noticed that? I watched the entirety of his Tulsa rally. Should have gone over it on stream. That's my fault. You know what he's talking about these days? It is not how he is going to make the country better by investing, by helping the economy. It's about purging this country of his political enemies.
Thank you. I am pleased to report that yesterday, federal agents arrested the suspected ringleader of the attack on the statue of the great Andrew Jackson in Washington, D.C.
Ringleader of the attack.
And in addition, hundreds more.
Just keep in mind, this is literally like just one protester who like had a bunch of people on a group text. The President of the United States on the 4th of July is getting applause for this.
More have been arrested. Under the executive order I signed last week pertaining to the Veterans Memorial Preservation and Recognition Act and other laws, people who damage or deface federal statues or monuments will get a minimum of 10 years in prison.
Now, I don't suppose I need to tell you that this is a pretty significant attack on free speech. Now, it is not lawful to deface public property under any circumstances, but to employ a 10-year minimum sentence to somebody who would spray paint Black Lives Matter on a George Washington statue? Is this a that can't be true, right? Wait, do you think Trump wouldn't do that? We're lucky he didn't try to have it so they were shot on sight. No, that probably won't stand up in court, but for right now.
Obviously, that includes our beautiful Mount Rushmore.
God, it looks so ugly. Does anyone else... Whenever I imagine Mount Rushmore, it looks like prettier in my mind. This is such an ugly... They don't even have like proper floodlighting on it. It just looks like a gray slab.
Our people have a great memory. They will never...
It looks like the Mount Rushmore got the restoration treatment from that one lady in Spain. You know what I'm talking about? The potato Jesus? Looks like somebody went up ahead and mushed it around.
Yet the destruction of statues and monuments to George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, abolitionists,
Ulysses S. Grant?
and many others. The violent mayhem we have seen in the streets and cities that are run by liberal Democrats in every case is the predictable result of years of extreme indoctrination and bias in education, journalism, and other cultural institutions. Against every law of society and nature, our children are taught in school.
Do you remember what we listened to earlier from Bob Heller? Against every law of nature. An appeal to nature is essential to the doctrine of fascism. It's not enough that the enemies of the state be enemies of the state. They must also be the enemies of the works of God.
To hate their own country and to believe that the men and women who built it were not heroes, but that were villains.
And pacifists say no. They want the wombs of American women to be shat in by the weak.
The radical view of American history is a web of lies. All perspective is removed. Every virtue is obscured. Every motive is twisted. Every fact is distorted. And every flaw is magnified.
Attacking the academic consensus on history. Mind you, our educational system does not do a good job teaching history, but probably not for the reasons Trump is accusing it of.
Until the history is purged and the record is disfigured beyond all recognition. This movement is openly attacking the legacies of every person on Mount Rushmore. They defile the memory of Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt. Today, we will set history and history's records straight. Before these figures were immortalized in stone, they were American giants in full flesh and blood, gallant.
It's giants. Is that the Mount Rushmore carvings are actually life size for them?
Men whose intrepid deeds unleashed the greatest leap of human advancement the world has ever known. Tonight, I will tell you, and most importantly, the youth of our nation, the true stories of these great, great men. From head to toe, George Washington represented the strength, grace, and dignity of the American people.
What we're listening to right now is a creation myth, folks. The same thing the Nazis would tell themselves about the old folk, about the Nordic giants who would wander. Have you actually looked into what the Nazis thought the original Aryans were like? These giants who would wander the plains, these massive, like the Aryans. Yeah, exactly, Ajax. Shared legend is essential to fascism. The nuance of history. This is why conservatives get so angry when you read a history book and it says America did a bad thing. They're not interested in understanding America. They're interested in throwing a perpetual rally for America, in eulogizing it from now until the end of time. Kind of like the opposite of a 2-minute hate from 1984. And through their lack of understanding, they construct a shared mythology that allows all of them to view the creation of America the same way a religious man would view the creation of the world from a god. They're able to mythologize its creation. They're able to put it in a position where it can't be meaningfully attacked, because you can only attack America, we only attack America, with material information. When I criticize America, I do so materially. I think of material facts and concepts, things rooted in the real world. But none of those mean anything if you worship America and Americanism and American exceptionalism the same way a religious person would worship their deity. And that is very much a deliberate process on the part of the people like Trump, who eulogize these people, who mythologize the birth of America, because it makes it unassailable. What exactly would you say to criticize Washington to somebody from this rally? Not Trump, but one of the people in the seats. What would you say? I mean, George Washington was a human like any other. He certainly wasn't perfect. What do you think you could say to levy a criticism at Washington that they would go, yes, okay, that sounds reasonable? I don't think there is. I don't think there's anything they would listen to. He ripped out slaves' teeth. They either wouldn't believe you or wouldn't care. Do you seriously think the people in that crowd would believe any of that shit? I mean, if you go far right enough, maybe they'll agree. Yeah, fuck George Washington. He got rid of the monarchy. Really depends.
From a small volunteer force of citizen farmers, he created the Continental Army out of nothing and rallied them to stand against the most powerful military on earth. Through 8 long years, through the brutal winter at Valley Forge, through setback after setback on the field of battle, he led those patriots to ultimate triumph. When the army had dwindled to a few thousand men at Christmas
Get on with
of
it, dipshit.
when called upon again, he presided over the of his anti-slavery convictions. Never relinquished the bold, beautiful, and untamed spirit of Theodore Roosevelt. To secure its borders.
That would get applause.
The great Louis Armstrong, Alan Shepard, Elvis Presley,
What?
and Muhammad Ali. And only America could have produced them all. No other place. We are the culture.
Imagine invoking Muhammad Ali in the context of what Trump is rallying against right now. That's pretty fucking funny. Nation of Islam, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, no, what did he say? No, Charlie never called me the N-word. Nope, no, did he, I forget, he said something like that.
That put up the Hoover Dam, laid down the highways,
No Viet Cong,
sculpted
yeah.
the skyline of Manhattan. We are the people who dreamed a spectacular dream.
You guys watched my debate with Eric Stryker, right? The duo debate with Destiny as well. This is what pure rhetoric looks like. No substance, pure emotion. It exists only to evoke feelings in its audience. And sometimes that's totally fine. I mean, if you're watching Les Miserables, then sure, the fuck go. I mean, yeah, sure, you're there to feel emotions. But when you're watching the President of the United States of America use that rhetoric in an effort to mobilize his political base against a political opponent, I mean,
It was called Las Vegas in the Nevada desert, who built up Miami from the Florida marsh, and who carved our heroes into the face of Mount Rushmore. Americans harnessed electricity, split the atom, and gave the world the telephone and the internet. We settled the Wild West, won 2 world wars, landed American astronauts on the moon. And
yeah, we're getting a little wacky with this historical revisionism. But peeling apart the bad history, you notice how when he praises America, he praises a mythologized version of its history and some abstract principles we apparently adhere to today. He doesn't actually talk about real convictions. You'll notice, for example, the very, very, very common, very historically popular way of eulogizing America is not being used. And he never talks like this. Shining city on the hill. Example to the rest of the world. You know, humbled, wretched masses and all that. Doesn't talk about feeding the hungry or sheltering the homeless or caring for the poor or promoting the virtues of our country worldwide. Now, if he did say those things, it would still be bullshit. Obama said those things, and he was bullshitting. But it does indicate the priorities of the bullshitter. And personally, I would rather have a president who feels more comfortable bullshitting to me and to the rest of the country by talking about how we set a glorious example for all the world in our attempt to, through charity and ingenuity, move the human race forward, than I would somebody who bullshits to me by telling me some fucking fairy tale about how America has done everything good ever, and everyone who hates America is degenerate and subhuman, and how American culture is the only good culture. It really speaks to the priorities of the bullshitter.
one day, very soon, we will plant our flag on Mars.
If Elon Musk was present for this, he would come out right here. Musk would 100% work with the Trump presidency.
We gave the world the poetry of Walt Whitman, the stories of Mark Twain, the song.
This is one of the things that I really dislike about patriotism. America didn't do shit. Walt Whitman gave Walt Whitman stuff. Mark Twain did Mark Twain's stuff. We, individuals, do our own stuff. America didn't do that. America just happened to be around for it. Yeah, and Mark Twain was a pretty substantial critic of America at points, I'd say.
Songs of Irving Berlin, the voice of Ella Fitzgerald.
I don't know who that is.
The style of Frank Sinatra.
Sure.
The comedy of Bob Hope.
He's just
The
naming
power
people.
of the Saturn V rocket. The toughness of
Okay.
the Ford F-150.
America did the rocket, I guess?
and the awesome might of the American aircraft carriers.
Just naming stuff.
Americans must never lose sight of this miraculous story. We should never lose sight of it.
Also, the conflation. Hey, to all you people in chat who are mad that I don't know some fucking old-ass singer, okay, listen, I listen to fucking bops. If it came out before 2014, it's not real music, okay? It's just fucking static scraping by on the fucking disc track of a record, all right? I only listen to digita. When I'm zooming and bopping when I listen to music, okay? I need your shit right now. Thank you.
Nobody has ever done it like we have done it. So today, under the authority vested in me as President of the United States, I am announcing the creation of a new monument to the giants of our past. I am signing an executive order to establish the National Guard of American Heroes, a vast outdoor park that will feature the statues of the greatest Americans to ever live.
This is what they stand up for.
From this night,
Fascism is the aestheticization of politics. It's a park. There's going to be statues in it. This is what we stand for. This is what they care about. When that park gets built, if it gets built, because Trump administration can't get anything done. If that park gets built, there will be Americans, just ordinary civilians, who would rather die than see that park defaced, whose identity is so intertwined with the glory of the nation that they would lay down their mortal lives to protect some of those statues. You know, it reminds me, I saw a post on 4chan just a little bit ago, by which I mean I saw a screenshot, of course. You know. And what it was some guy talking about what he would do if he was near a statue that was about to be taken down. And what he did, and he wrote this out in a big green text, was essentially fantasize about dying to protect a statue. He didn't even say which statue. It wasn't even a particular statue. Just the idea of dying for a statue. And when I was reading that, I was thinking, how cucked is this? This is the most cucked shit I've ever seen in my life. He was being sincere too. It wasn't written out like a green text meant to be screen capped. It actually sounded like an awkward and insecure person on the far right legitimately considering the idea of giving their lives to the defense of some statue. They didn't even know which statue. It's the most cucked shit I've ever seen in my life. Seriously. Like you could put that screenshot up on Pornhub and you could put it into the appropriate category, and people who get off on that fantasy will find that screenshot and they will blast fat loads to the mental imagery of a man with nothing in his life dying to protect inanimate rock. It's insane to me. This is one of the things that I feel bad for fascists. You know, for every one Trump, for every person who gets to ride the wave of applause, there are a million worthless suckers whose lives are so empty that they can be easily roped into giving everything, not even to ideas, but to aesthetics. People who would rather get shot than see somebody trample on the American flag. People who would rather be trampled than see somebody deface a statue. They don't know. They don't know anything else. That's all they have. And to a lot of them, that's all they are. Americanism is their identity. That's why they've got it on their Ford pickup truck, the flag. That's why they've got it hanging in the front of their house. That's why they get so defensive. That's all they have. They, at every moment of their lives, are as defensive of the aesthetics of America as American soldiers are its actual existence. Which is to say, very much in principle, but very little in reality. And it's sad.
And from this magnificent place, let us go forward united in our purpose and rededicated in our resolve. We will raise the next generation of American patriots. We will write the next thrilling chapter of the American adventure. And we will teach our children to know that they live in a land of legends, that nothing can stop them.
Which of Umberto Eco's 14 points are the live to be a hero? Which one is it? One of them. Honestly. Where is it? Where's the heroism? Everyone is educated to become a hero. In Eurofascist ideology, heroism is the norm. This cult of heroism is strictly linked with the cult of death. They do that a lot, don't they?
And that no one can hold them down. They will know that in America, you can do anything, you can be anything, and together we can achieve anything. Uplifted by the titans of Mount Rushmore, we will find unity that no one expected. We will make strides that no one thought possible. This country will be everything that our citizens have hoped for so many years, and that our enemies fear.
There we go.
Because we will never forget that the American freedom exists for American greatness, and that's what we have, American greatness.
What does that mean exactly? Enemies fear because American greatness. What does that mean exactly? The only enemies he's referred to throughout the course of this speech are Americans. He's been talking about protesters.
Centuries from now, our legacy will be
Jesus Christ, he goes
the
on
cities
forever.
we built, the champions we forged, the good that we did, and the monuments we created to inspire us all. My fellow citizens, America's destiny is in our sights. America's heroes are embedded in our hearts. America's future is in our hands. And ladies and gentlemen, the best is yet to come.
After a speech like that, that's more of a threat than anything else. Yeah, knew I should have never accepted that duo debate with Destiny. Didn't know he was working with Trump. Yeah, so why do we watch all this? Well, the point that I'm laboriously trying to get at is, as always, vote for Biden. Fuck you. We are legitimately on the precipice of a fascist takeover of this country. Trump still has a 90% approval rating amongst the Republican Party. It doesn't matter what he does. Trump could literally have the National Guard sent into Congress to have Democratic Congress people shot, and he would still maintain that approval rating. The Republican Party is an absolute fucking cancer to this country. It is a solvent to the bonds of democracy. And if we are going to survive, we will need to, in every conceivable way, by every strongest effort, obliterate the Republican Party from this country, to make them irrelevant, to make their leaders and their followers so hated and so revised that for the rest of history, their party is remembered as one of the greatest threats to this country's health. All right? Just keep that in mind. Here, look, we can do a fun little roundup at the end. You know what I wish? You can neat me if you want. I think I'd do a great fascism speech. I'm a great speaker, okay? If you get me up there, age me 30 years, give me a salt and pepper beard, you get me up on stage, I could do a fucking bomb fascist speech, okay? Trump sucks at it. They clap for that? The fuck? I could fucking nail that shit. It's so easy. Because you don't have to say anything. You know, you just talking big generalities, you know. Do a fascist speech right now? No, fuck you. Here, actually, I do think it'd be fun, though, with Umberto Eco's 14 Points of Fascism. Now, this describes the social and political tendencies of fascism. I thought it might be nice to go over them super duper quickly and see how many of them this speech on its own ticked off. Maybe we can take a look at that. So, first, number 1, the cult of tradition. One has only to look at the syllabus of every fascist movement to find the major traditionalist thinkers. The Nazi gnosis was nourished by traditionalist, syncreticist, occult elements. So that one's pretty easy. I probably don't have to defend that one. The rejection of modernism. This was not done. At no point did Trump reject the Enlightenment or anything associated with it. In fact, hyperbolically or hypocritically, he celebrated Enlightenment thinkers, which is funny considering he's, a fascist, but that's idiosyncrasy for you. The cult of action for action's sake. Action being beautiful in itself and must be taken before or without any previous reflection. I would say passing an executive order, not sending it through Congress, to give protesters 10 years if they deface a statue, when this is a completely aesthetic problem that doesn't actually have anything to do with the well-being of this country. I would say that's the cult of action for action's sake. People stood up and cheered for it. They just want to see stuff happening. Disagreement is treason. That he literally opened the speech with that. So he literally, like, that was, he literally, okay, yeah, so that one's pretty easy. Fear of difference, I would also say that was pretty much the entirety of the speech, considering he said that, the people who disagreed with him are un-American and hateful and that they want to destroy everything you've ever known and loved and obliterate your culture. I'd say that's pretty set here. Appeal to social frustration. Oh my god, yes. One of the most typical features of the historical fascism was the appeal to a frustrated middle class. Why do you think he kept talking about cancel culture? He's trying to appeal to the cultural anxieties of the audience, who feel like at any moment they might lose everything, perhaps rightfully so, because their coworkers or whatever notice that they're like unironic fucking white nationalists. The obsession with a plot. When he talked about the nefarious far-left agitators who are working together to destroy American culture. Very good. We talked about this one during the video. The enemy is both strong and weak. The way that at once they are weak, degenerate, heathenly, anti-American, whimpering college students, but also capable of destroying all of American culture. It's good. Pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. Yep. He specifically talked about, like, the cult of inaction, how there are people who would have us not respond to this, but responding immediately, effectively, and aggressively is the way forward. Easy. Everyone is educated to become a hero. Yep. He talked about how the future's children will all be made heroes by the ideology of America, that they will be great and unstoppable. This is, I mean, you literally would get this from Hitlerjugend camps, Every child is supposed to be educated to not just be exceptional, but be exceptional within the context of American exceptionalism. It's not enough. It's not enough that that they be exceptional. It has to be for the country. I skipped one. Yes, contempt for the weak. Did he explicitly do this? I'm not sure if he explicitly expressed contempt for the weak. He said that the enemies feel contempt because they say America is weak, but I don't believe he did this. Machismo and weaponry. Machismo implies both disdain for women and intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits from chastity to homosexuality. Nothing about this speech really had anything to do with gender or sexuality, so that one gets off. Ooh, this one's easy. Selective populism. There is in our future a TV or internet populism in which the emotional response of a selected group of citizens can be presented and accepted as the, in caps, voice of the people, i.e., the protesters are not American. And fascism speaks newspeak. I don't think in any point of the speech he used any strange syntax or any new language. Though Nazis will frequently do this online, they'll very often use like very strange. Incels do this too. So in total, I believe that's 11 out of 14. We did not have the rejection of modernism. We did not have contempt for the weak. No, 10 out of 14. We didn't have machismo and weaponry. We didn't have fascism speaks newspeak. There you go. And that was just this speech, by the way. That was just this speech, not the entirety of the presidency. You know? So solid score, 10 out of 14. What would that be? What would that be? That's 5 out of 7. That should be probably like a 73%, I think. About 73%. Yeah. Thereabouts. 71? Is it 71? Gotcha. 71%. Thanks, guys. He passed. There you go. He passed the fascism test. Do you ever get depressed constantly researching and talking about shitty people who have that much power? I don't think getting depressed helps anything. Every one of us has the power to meaningfully improve this country, this world, if we take the opportunity to do so. I have more power than most because I have a big YouTube channel. I guess that's how political power works these days, but I can influence people, and I care to influence people. And when I see stuff like this, all it does is remind me how much the words of me and people like me are needed. And it gives me hope that, in spite of how badly things may be going at this moment, that we will perhaps rebound from it, that we will have the capacity to do great things in spite of it, and that we will be inspired by the almost inhuman monstrousness of our opponents to do better than them and to be stronger than them. And I do think we are stronger than them because, holy shit, anybody who was actually motivated by that Trump speech is truly some like 40 IQ. Like, can you imagine? Hey, if you think you're low right now, can you imagine being so simple that a Trump speech where he vaguely gesticulates for 45 minutes while talking about how America is a mythological country founded by godmen and being inspired by that? Well, anyway, that was our Trump fascism review. If you want, you can go ahead. You can buy his weird little Nazi iconography T-shirts, or I don't know. Go join his White House speechwriting staff. There are probably quite a few Nazis there. Do you think you'd do a full hope segment on how to fix things? My entire channel is a hope segment on how to fix things. There's no one way forward. There's no one route. It's just a matter of keeping at it. So let's keep at it.